The 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be unlike any competition we've ever seen, with 48 nations being placed into 12 groups of 4. The World Cup draw took place yesterday, and we now know how groups A through L look like going into next year's competition. Now, whenever something big happens in the football world, you know that we have to make a tier list for it, and that's exactly what we have here today. We have our tier list here, we have the 12 groups of 4 teams here at the bottom, groups A through L, and we're going to be ranking them based on how interesting the groups seem right now, how good they're going to be playing in next summer, and which ones I'm personally the most interested in. So let's kick things off with Group A. Now, Group A contains Mexico, South Africa, Korea, Republic, and the playoff path winner D from the UEFA qualifiers. Now, this is a really interesting group looking at it from the face value. Obviously, the opening match of the 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be Mexico taking on South Africa. Now, the crazy thing is this exact same opening match happened 16 years ago in 2010 when South Africa was hosting the World Cup, and it's happening now. That game ended in a 1-1 draw, so I'm really excited to see how this one's going to end this time around. That being said, Mexico did play South Korea in 2018, and that was actually the game that knocked out South Korea out of the competition. So there's a lot of backstory here, there's a lot of back and forth going on in this group, and personally I think it's going to be really interesting to see how these storylines mesh together next summer. So with that being said, I think Group A is pretty solid, but it's not the best one at this World Cup, and for that reason I think it's going to go into the B tier for now. Moving on to Group B, we have Canada, the UEFA playoff winner A, Qatar, and Switzerland. So this group is what I'm calling the group of redemption, and why I'm saying that is because at the 2022 World Cup, Canada had a pretty awful group stage, Qatar had a really awful group stage performance, and Switzerland lost to Portugal 6-1 as they went out of the competition. So there's a lot for these teams to prove at next year's competition. A lot of them want to improve from their performance in 2022, and that is only going to happen if they make it out of the group and possibly into the round 16 or the quarterfinals. That being said, there's a lot of interesting storylines here. Canada being the host nation, they have a really solid team going into next year's World Cup. Switzerland also look really dangerous, they have a solid team as well. Qatar are kind of a wild card, you never really know how they're going to play, but hopefully they'll be better than they were in 2022. And with the UEFA playoff path winner A being possibly Italy or Wales or Bosnia or Northern Ireland, you never really know how it's going to turn out with those playoff teams. So that being said, Group B is also pretty interesting as well, but again, not my favorite at this World Cup, so it's also going to go into the B tier. So now we're moving on to Group C, and Group C is made up of Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. So what's really interesting about this group is that it's almost an exact replica of the 1998 FIFA World Cup Group A. That group had the exact same teams except Haiti was replaced with Norway. So these three teams, Brazil, Morocco, and Scotland, have already seen each other before, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens this time around. That being said, Morocco and Scotland are going into this tournament full of momentum based on their qualifying campaigns, and Brazil are honestly on the back foot. They didn't look that solid in their qualifying campaign. Their team isn't as good as it has been before. Carlo Ancelotti is a relatively new coach, so there's a lot up in the air here. It's kind of hard to predict how this group is going to go right now, but honestly, out of Brazil, Scotland, and Morocco, any three of those could possibly finish at the top of Group C. So with that in mind, I think this is a really interesting group. I'm really excited to see who comes on the top on this one, and it's only going in the A tier for now. So now we're moving on to Group D, and Group D contains the USA, Paraguay, Australia, and the UEFA playoff path winner C. So there's a lot to talk about in this group as well. I think in this group, the United States have the most pressure to perform and to especially win this group as well. It is their World Cup on home soil, and considering how they played in 2022 and 2018, they're in desperate need of a deep run at this competition. Paraguay are pretty interesting in their qualifying group. I think they have a solid chance of making it out of this group as well. Australia have also been on the up in the recent years. They have a pretty good team going into this World Cup. And with the UEFA playoff path winner C, either Slovakia, Turkey, Kosovo, or Romania will be making it. So any one of those teams could have put up a fight in this group. The only thing with this group is there isn't like one crazy good team that has like a super good chance of winning all three games. I think it's pretty well balanced, but because of that, there isn't like one team that's really caught my eye and really made my attention go towards this group. So with that being said, it's a solid group on paper, but I don't think it's better than any of the three we've already seen so far. So I think it's going to have to settle for the C tier for now. So moving on to Group E at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, we have Germany, Curacao, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ecuador. So obviously the biggest storyline here is Germany will be the favorites in this group. They are in desperate need of a win after losing in the group stages in 2022 and 2018. If they don't make it out of the groups and don't go on a deep run this competition, a lot of questions will be asked of this national team. But that being said, they are playing Ecuador. That match did happen in 2006 in the group stages. That ended in a 3-0 win for Germany, I believe. But going into this group, I think Germany have the confidence, they have the ability to know that they are the favorites here. Ecuador are also a really good team on paper. They were very impressive in the CONMEBOL qualifiers, and I genuinely think they can shock a lot of people in this group, but unfortunately Germany is not one of them. Ivory Coast are a pretty interesting team to follow as well. They're really good in the African qualifiers, but do they have what it takes to make it out of this group? I'm not exactly sure. And then for Curacao, it's going to be a very unfortunate debutant World Cup for them. They're probably going to get destroyed by these three teams. So because of that, because of how clear it is, because of how obvious it is that Germany are the favorites here, I'm not too interested in this group, even though Germany is my favorite team. So I think it's going to have to settle for the D tier for now. So now we're on to Group F, and Group F is made up of Netherlands, Japan, the UEFA playoff winner B, and Tunisia. Now in this group, obviously, I think the Netherlands will be the heavy favorites for most people, but I think it's safe to say that Japan can definitely pull off an upset on their best day. They were very good in the Asian qualifiers, and I definitely think they have enough firepower to shock a lot of people next year. Tunisia are also a very good side in their own respect, but I don't think they're going to be the favorites here. I think it's going to be very tough for them to get a win in this group. What this group heavily depends on is the UEFA qualifiers. So if in playoff B we get Ukraine or Poland, I think it's going to make for a really interesting group. I think those two teams would really spice up Group F. But if we get Sweden, who were absolutely miserable in the European qualifiers, or Albania, who don't really have any World Cup experience, I think it can kind of tip the balance of this group negatively. So with that being said, I think this really depends on the UEFA qualifying group, the playoff path winner here. And because we don't know that yet, I think this group has to settle for the C tier as well. Now we're moving on to Group G, and Group G is made up of Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. So in this group, I think it's kind of the group of past golden generations. I think Belgium's golden generation is over. They haven't been super good in the past few tournaments. Egypt is also a bit of an aging squad. They have Omar Marmoush in attack, who I think is really interesting, but Mo Salah is having a very rough season for Liverpool right now, and I genuinely don't think he has what it takes to carry this team anymore. Iran and New Zealand are kind of the wild cards here. You never really know what they're going to do at the World Cup, how they're going to perform, if they're going to shock anyone. So this group is kind of up in the air, and honestly, because all the other groups have so much talent and have so much going for it, this group just hasn't really caught my attention. It honestly has kind of fallen through the cracks. And because of that, I don't think it can go anywhere but the F tier today. And now we're moving on to Group H. Now, Group H is made up of Spain, Cabo Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. The obvious storyline here is that Spain are going to be the heavy favorites going into this group. They are the Euro 2024 winners. They have an elite level talent everywhere on the pitch. They have so many good players who are going to be stepping up at next year's World Cup. And the thing is, they're too good. I think Spain are too good for this group. Everyone else doesn't really have a chance. Uruguay might put up a fight against them, but they haven't been performing that well lately either. Saudi Arabia, unless they pull off a crazy upset like they did in 2022 against Argentina, have no chance in this group. And Cabo Verde, honestly, as the debutants, they got a pretty tough draw, so I don't think they're going to do too much here. It's going to be interesting to see how Spain and Uruguay come around, but because it's going to be so one-sided and the other teams don't have much of a chance, I think it just has to go into the D tier as well. So now we're moving on to Group I, and Group I is made up of France, Senegal, the winner of the Interconfederation Playoff Path 2, and Norway. Now, obviously, this is easily the strongest and most exciting group at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. You have France, who have made it to the past 2 World Cup finals. They won one of them, they lost one of them, and honestly, their team is good enough to possibly make it to a 3rd straight World Cup final. You also have Senegal, one of the strongest African nations going into next year's World Cup. They have talent all over the pitch as well, and I think they really want to prove to the world that they can compete with the big dogs. Then you have Norway. Now, Norway were easily the best team in the European qualifiers. They scored 37 goals. They won all 8 games. It's Erling Haaland's first ever World Cup. And he's going to be going up against one of the other best players in the world, one of the other best strikers in the world in Kylian Mbappe in this group. So there's a lot to talk about there. Regarding the Interconfederation playoffs, it's going to be either Iraq, Suriname, or Bolivia. I think any of those teams could make things interesting. But let's be honest, those other 3 teams are so good that it's going to be a 3-horse race for first place in this group. That being said, I'm super excited for Group I. I think it's going to be most interesting. It's going to be the most goal-scoring fest of all of the groups at the World Cup, and because of that, it's going to be going into the S tier. So now we're moving on to Group J, and Group J is made up of Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. So obviously, the clear favorite here is going to be Argentina. They are the reigning champions. They were incredible at the 2022 World Cup. They were pretty solid in their qualifying campaign. It's going to be Messi's last dance at the World Cup, his 6th World Cup competition. There's no denying that Argentina are the clear favorites here, but what makes this group interesting is the other 3 teams. So Austria and Algeria, they're pretty solid. I think Austria have a slight advantage based on how they played in the European qualifiers, but Algeria are not a team that you should mess with. They have some good players, they have some good talent, and they can always pull off an upset. The interesting thing here is Jordan, how they will play at their debutant tournament. If they can get things going, if they can get their feet under them, if they can get a draw or a win in their first game, that really changes the complexion of this group. So even though Argentina are the favorites, I think the other 3 teams could really make things interesting in this group. That being said, I think it can go into the B tier with the other groups here. I think that's a solid place for it. Now we're on to Group K, and Group K is made up of Portugal, the winner of the FIFA Interconfederation Playoff Path 1, Uzbekistan, and Colombia. Now this is a very spicy group. Portugal are probably going to feel like they are the favorites here, but honestly, I think it's a mix-up between them and Colombia. They're both very good teams. I think they're relatively equal on paper. Portugal have some very interesting younger talents, and they obviously have Cristiano Ronaldo going into his final World Cup as well, so they shouldn't be counted out. But Colombia are also really good. They have Luis Diaz, they have James Rodriguez coming back. They have a lot of really good young talent on that team as well. You throw in Uzbekistan, who are at their first ever World Cup. They are the debutants, so they really have nothing to lose. They're just going to go out there. They're going to play their best football. They're going to make things interesting. And honestly, if they can steal a point from Portugal or Colombia, it completely changes this group as well. Now, if we're talking about the Interconfederation Playoff winners, it's going to be DR Congo, New Caledonia, or Jamaica. Now, I think it's going to be DR Congo coming out of this playoff path, but if it's them or Jamaica, it's going to be very interesting as well. I think they're pretty on par with Uzbekistan as well. So it's honestly going to be like a pretty balanced group. You have two very good teams here in Portugal and Colombia, but you also have two very good teams in Uzbekistan and either Jamaica or DR Congo. So with that being said, Group K is going to be very interesting. I'm very looking forward to this one, but I don't think it's as good as Group I, so I think it's going to have to settle for the A tier. So finally, we're on to the last group of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and that is going to be Group L. Now, Group L is made up of England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. Now, this is a very interesting group because England and Croatia met at the 2018 World Cup in the semi-finals. That was an absolutely brilliant match. That game ended up going Croatia's way. They got a 2-1 victory in that game, but England had a very good team then, and they have an even better team now. Croatia are a bit more on the downturn. Honestly, their golden generation is kind of faded, but this will be Luka Modric's last ever World Cup, so it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do as well. But those are just the European teams. Let's look at the other two teams in this group. Ghana are also a very capable African nation. They were good in the African qualifiers. They can always pull off an upset at the World Cup. If they can get a draw against England or Croatia, that completely changes things in this group. And let's not forget about Panama as well. Panama will be playing with nothing to lose at their second ever World Cup. They'll be looking for their first ever points at the World Cup. And honestly, you never know. Maybe they pull off an upset. Maybe they do something crazy. There's a lot of storylines to follow in Group L. That being said, Group L is going to be a very interesting group. I'm very much looking forward to this one, and it's going to go into the S tier as well. So there you have it. We've ranked all 12 groups of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Now, I strongly believe that every group at the World Cup will have its own flair, its own drama, its own storylines, its own excitement. There's really a lot to look forward to in every single group here. That being said, my favorite groups are going to be Group I, Group L, Group C, and Group K, but I'm honestly looking forward to every single game at next year's World Cup. There's going to be 104 games altogether, with 48 teams taking place in the group stage, and honestly, I'm super excited for it. I hope you are as well, and hopefully these groups do not disappoint. But what did you think of my 2026 FIFA World Cup groups tier list? Are there any rankings that you do agree with, don't agree with, and some that should be changed altogether? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more football content, tier lists, and everything in between, and as always, I'll catch you next time.